feel like I'm so loud. I can whisper. Hello. Echo, 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 echo. How is everybody? Good? All right. Well, we usually start with prayer, so we're gonna do that again tonight, if that's good with everybody. Is that good with you, Rebecca? This is my guest, Rebecca. Everybody say hi, Rebecca. She doesn't like to be up front, so she's nervous.
I'm not nervous. I'm not nervous.
Okay. He's
nervous because I'm going to be speaking.
You have a microphone, talking to it. Just pray? Okay. Yes, ma'am. Father, thank you for tonight. Thank you for everybody who is here. And thank you for those that are not here as well, God. Be with all those who aren't feeling good, those who just need a touch of encouragement from you, God. Lord, I pray that as we go through this study tonight, that your presence would be with us, that you would shape us and mold us and change us, and that we'd be able to just have an open conversation, honest conversation, maybe learn a little bit from each other tonight as we wrap up this series. It's in your name we pray. Amen. Right. So I put together a little bit of a study, a little bit of a scriptural guide for us that centers on something that Rebecca has kind of made a mantra in our family, and a mantra in our lives. And it comes from Psalm 127. So this talk, or this night, is titled Raising Arrows. You want to talk about that a little bit? You don't?
You can just read the scripture and do the things.
You want me just to read the scripture and do the things? Okay. All right. We can read the scripture and do the things. This comes from Psalm 127. And the whole psalm is beautiful. We probably should read all of it together, but we're not going to do it that way. We're going to kind of skip around. So Rebecca would say that, the reason I asked her if she would say that something about it, she probably would say this a little bit differently than the way I put it. But I'm a guy, and Greg, what are your favorite movies? The Lord of the Rings trilogy. Braveheart, Gladiator, The Patriot. These are my favorite movies. So there's lots of violence in the movies I like. So the way I write things and the way she may write it or eloquently say it are different. But here's the truth. Here's the main point. This is the whole thing. We're not raising run-of-the-mill children. We are raising weapons of spiritual war. That's what this psalm, Solomon wrote this psalm, seems to say. It starts like this. It's really neat how it starts. Unless the Lord builds the house, those who build it labor in vain. Unless the Lord watches over the city, the watchman stays awake in vain. It is in vain that you rise up early and go late to rest, eating the bread of anxious toil, for he gives to his beloved sleep or rest. So, if we're going to apply that verse to our subject, raising kids in the midst of the culture that we're in, culture that just wants to attack morality at every corner. This is kind of some of the truths that I think that we can get out of that first portion of this scripture. It's vanity to believe that you have parenting all figured out. To believe that you have grandparenting all figured out. It's vanity for me to believe that I have pastoring all figured out. That's vanity, right? It's vanity for me to believe that I have being a father all figured out. Go ahead. You have a microphone. It's okay. That was funny. They would laugh at that.
I said, or husband.
It's,
You don't have that figured out.
it's vanity for me to believe that I have being a husband all figured out. Right? I've never been a husband before. You're the first person I was ever a husband to. I've never done that before.
It's been 15 years.
It's a learning process, okay? We're all getting better,
We need
right?
to speed up the process. I'm sorry. This is the last time he was going to ask me to come up on stage.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, keep going.
So I think that's important for us to just. It doesn't matter what kind of parenting we're talking about, though. It doesn't matter whether we're actually talking about, how old is the right age for me to give my child a cell phone.
I think it's just like, it's vanity to believe that you have life figured out.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
whatever stage of life you're in, it's always a learning process.
It's always a learning process. And you can't do it you can't do it without God. If you try to do it on your own without God, it's the way this scripture is kind of talking is nonsense. You're the watchman who's staying up all night, not sleeping, watching the gate for naught. It doesn't matter. Because if God's not watching the gate, who cares that there's a human watching the gate? If he's not protecting the city, who cares? Doesn't matter what you've built to protect. If God's not in it, it's not successful, right? It's vanity to attempt protecting your children from the schemes of the devil with frail tools designed by the human mind and formed by human hands. So some of what we're going to talk about tonight and some of the advice that you may hear would be talking about putting some tools in place to help protect kids, right? Those tools are great, but like alone, they're not going to protect our kids. You can put the best firewall on planet Earth up on everything you have. You can totally prevent your kids from ever seeing, anything on any screen ever in their life. All the different things. But we're dealing with a power, a supernatural power, and the devil that will find a way in. Yeah, find a way in. And without God playing a role in this, then we don't have hope. It doesn't matter how good we are. It doesn't matter whether we're the best parents on earth. If God doesn't step up, if God's not coming alongside of us, and he's not a part of this equation, then there's no hope. We're at a loss. And I think that's important for us to keep in mind as we kind of go forward. The last point. It's vanity to be anxious about that which you have put under the protection of God. So this is a big one for me. Because we were going to have a conversation, so you have to talk with me. Okay. We go to the football games in Hartselle, like me and the kids. Rebecca stays home with Katie most of the time. And Dwight sat by me when I brought Katie. Dwight and Jenny sat by me when I brought Katie last week. And I did not let Katie go play down by the concession stand.
I don't believe you.
Without me. She sat with us the whole game, didn't she? She sat with us the whole game. No. Rebecca gets a little bit concerned when I let Paige and William go play at the football field. She wants eyes on them because she's mama bear, right? Why does that concern you? Just be honest.
A lot of things can happen.
A lot of things can happen in this world,
Yes.
Yes.
And it only takes one time
and it only takes one time for them to,
for anything to happen. Like,
Yeah.
and you realize, oh my, I could have been proactive about this.
instead of reactive. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
I just stay home.
So, just this one. So, upon lots of evaluating of that situation and assessing the fact that, we know everybody over there and everybody knows our kids, and I can really just ask anybody, hey, have you seen William? And they're like, yeah, he's right over there, or he's right over here. I have made the executive decision that it's okay for them to go play as long as they come check in some. And they do, because they inevitably want some money. If you give them too much money at the start of the game, they won't come check in. So you got to break the 20 and give it to them in stages. I have learned that. So there's a bit of parenting advice for you. If you need them to come check in, break the money down, give them less at a time. They'll come back. Okay? And I think that's true like into adulthood. If you were to ask my mom the same thing, she would say the same thing. Don't give it all to them up front. You won't see them for a couple years. Just give them a little bit at a time. They'll keep coming back. They'll still want to have Sunday lunch with you and all that. At the end of the day, I can be standing right next to my children when their life is lost. I can. That's life. That's part of it. I can do the very best I can to protect them and it not be enough. That is just life. It's just part of it. And so at some level you have to evaluate, how much do we give them freedom and how much do we ask for God to protect them when they go out from here? When they go out from us, when they go away from us, God, will you protect them? And we're going to find out here in a minute that it's not simply, God, will you protect them? It's actually a little bit more than that, and that's the part that really gets scary. I don't mean to scare you. It's just truth. Behold, children are a heritage from the Lord. The fruit of the womb is a reward. Like arrows in the hand of a warrior are the children of one's youth. Blessed is the man who fills his quiver with them. He shall not be put to shame when he speaks with his enemies in the gate. So speaking with your enemies in the gate, the enemies only get to the gate when the solution is coming, when it's time for the treaty. Either the battle's over or the battle never happened because the enemy walked to the gate with a white flag in hand or whatever it is, and now you're speaking, how are we going to resolve this? What's going to be the treaty? What are going to be the terms now that we've had this conflict or whatever it is? The Lord considers your children to be weapons of war. An arrow in the quiver of a warrior, this is a weapon. Not only is it a weapon, it's an offensive weapon. An arrow is a weapon that's used to attack the enemy from a distance. It's not just a shield that's used that we get to hold on to really tight and keep really close to us. That would be a fun one. If it said, the Lord considers your children, if I was saying the Lord considers your children to be a shield from the Lord, oh good, I get to hold on to them. Or a sword, you get to hold on to a sword. No. This is an arrow. What happens with an arrow? Eventually, you let go. Or the captain of the guard says, loose. And all of the archers let loose of their arrows at once. Pretty cool, right? It's an offensive weapon. It's going away from you. It's going out. Our children have been called to confront the enemy away from our home, so we teach them how to confront the enemy while They are at home. So, before we go on to the next slide, do you have any thoughts on any of that? That part scares you a little bit in our relationship when we talk about some of that stuff. Just say something.
I don't know, like, what do you want me to say? I have anxiety when it comes to my children not being in my eyesight.
In your eyesight. Yeah.
That's something that I have to deal with almost every day.
Mm-hmm. And that's where that faith and that trust in God and that stuff really helps big time. Because when Rebecca says she has anxiety about that, like, this is something that really, for her, it's serious. Dropping the kids off at school is not easy. Never has been for her. It's hard. So God being with them and with her in that moment and throughout the day is part of the reason why she can. Because of her faith in God. That's the reason that we're able to do that. She has told me, I think I'm just going to homeschool them, right? I'm like, okay, I mean, we can do that. We can talk about that.
The quarantine happened, and I realized that I was not going to do that.
Yeah. We tried that during
I'll put
quarantine.
my faith in God a lot more.
Yeah. Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
But those are things, and we've talked about. I've shared these type of things before in the past when we talk about SROs at school and all the different things that they do with schools to keep our kids safe, and are our kids safe in school or out of school, and all those different things. And we come to the realization that at the end of the day, they're not safe. They're not safe. They're still in the world, right? But we put them there, trusting God. Trusting that God will protect them, trusting that God not only has them protected in some kind of a way in this life, but also that he has them protected for eternity. And that's what really matters anyways. Because this life is short for all of us. This life is very, very short for all of us. So ultimately, it's eternity that matters most. And that's what provides us with the kind of realization of saying, okay, God, they're little weapons. We send them to school in your name for your kingdom's sake, to put your gospel and your word back into that school, to spread your gospel and your word and your light within that school to the best of their ability and with all of the strength and might and power that you can provide them. That's what we want you to do every single day with them, God. And that's hard. That's hard. We want them to be Jesus to the school, right? Knowing that ultimately Jesus goes to the cross. But that's what we're praying, right? That's what we pray for all of that. As your pastor, that's what I pray for you. That God would use you as the hands and feet of Jesus in this community to go and shine a light, to serve, to be the one who delivers the gospel to the one who hasn't heard it, to be the one who is that smiling face, who shines that light for Jesus in the dark places in our world. And that is not an easy task. That is a hard calling to live up to. But it's the calling that Christians have been called to. So it's important. So while they're in our home, we want to teach them like what to do when we do let loose of the arrow one day when they're 30, right? And they get to move out of our home, go to college or something. Yeah. I don't care if they graduate high school when they're 22. Doesn't bother me at all. That may bother some of y'all, but it doesn't bother me. I can stay in my little house forever or until they're 22 or 30 or whatever. Some of you that are empty nesters are like, you say that now, and there's going to be a day where you're like, get out. I probably will one day. Here's some of the things that we kind of came up with just to talk about. And at this point, you guys are welcome to speak up. You're welcome if you want to raise your hand or if you want to just shout it out, shout it out. If you have questions, if you have thoughts, whatever it is, we're here for it for the rest of our time tonight. This is the way that we treat a screen at our house. A screen is like a knife at our home. Screen could be like good, but a screen can also cause some harm, some significant harm, big time. So screens are never 100% safe. When you teach like knife safety, right, to a child, a knife is never 100% safe. Just never is. I know this because I've cut myself. Rebecca knows this because she's cut her, so she cuts herself all the time accidentally.
Excuse me. Who was the last
You know who
person?
really
Who
does?
was
And
the last
she's
person?
watching, and I'm going to say it. Grammy. Your mom. Grammy cuts herself in the kitchen with a knife. Sometimes.
Greg has accidentally cut himself one too many times trimming the brisket, so he can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
I just am scared I might slip.
Yeah.
You wanted to give me a microphone.
It just tastes so much better when you trim the brisket. Have you ever noticed that a sandwich just tastes so much better when your wife makes the sandwich? There's something about that. I don't know what it is. It does. Keep going? Okay. And hands that have not been trained properly, screens harm the one that's watching them. It's the same thing with a knife, right? So I remember growing up, I wanted to help mom in the kitchen. I wanted to cook, and like the knife was the last thing. When your kids are growing up and you sit down at a table at a restaurant and they open up the silverware, you take the knife. And depending upon, who your child is, you might also take the fork. They get to have the spoon. It's like prison. And go out to eat. And when you're at the ninja place where they give the chopsticks and they're handing out the chopsticks, you're like, no, not those. Just the spoon. They can eat their salad with the spoon. They'll be fine. Or their hands. It'll be okay. The spoon won't harm anybody. Same thing with a screen, right? Like you have to have a certain level of maturity and have to know what you're doing for the screen to not cause some harm. Especially in our world today. Because if you just hand like a device that has a screen on it to somebody who has no idea what they're doing with it, no telling what will pop up on that screen, right? No telling what they're ready for. So you got to be cautious with these things, and guidance matters. You have a really funny story about that? Yeah.
So my funny story about you don't know what's going to pop up on things. I just remember, I don't know, one of Paige's friends had a UTI, and so she was like, she took it upon herself to find out what that was. So she Googled UTI. Praise Jesus, it was not graphic or anything, but that right there, that moment in my life, opened it. She could have been exposed to anything and everything with graphics there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And she was just being a young child who was...
She just wanted to know what a urinary tract infection was.
Yeah. So we have Google.
But she didn't know that, it could pop up with, she didn't know what it was. And so, it could have had male and female graphics on there.
Yeah.
To show what the UTI was, and then that would have been exposure that we weren't ready for and all the things. So, yeah, she doesn't have Google anymore.
Yeah.
She can ask Mom. Mom is her Google.
Yeah. That's funny. I didn't know that story, so
That's been a few years ago.
shows how much we communicate. So. That's good. That's a good example. But there's lots of things that happen in that kind of a way. And then in hands that intend to cause destruction, screens can harm other people. right? And hands that really mean to cause harm, they can cause some like significant harm, very serious harm. Not only when we're thinking about like sexual morality, but when we just think about morality in general, screens can cause harm, big time harm. So that's why, like, for our family, a screen is a knife. It's not just a regular thing. It's not so screens don't go in bedrooms, right? Because knives don't go in bedrooms, right? It's just little things like that for us that we just try to, we treat it like a knife. We're going to teach you how to use it. We're going to supervise you using it. And then over time, as you learn how to use it and all of those different things, we'll let you use it on your own. But the kind of knife that you give a young man first is like the little Cub Scout, Boy Scout, Swiss Army knife that, the blade's like this big. You don't go buy a machete and give it to a 4-year-old. Say, here, good luck. Like, I'm not going to take this computer and give it to a 4-year-old. Here you go. Or a 5-year-old, right? You get a leapfrog, right? That you put the little game into, and it plays a specific game, Doc McStuffins or whatever it is that it does, and it does math, right? It's good and it's positive. So because it's a beginner's knife, and then you graduate and graduate and graduate. And sometimes we don't realize that we think in our head, because we got a Nintendo. Who in here had like a regular Nintendo? Like the first original. Was that not awesome? Right? And then Super Nintendo was really cool. And then Nintendo 64 was cool. The graphics on it were cool, and you could do like first-person stuff. Everything was in 3D. It was awesome. And from that point on, after PlayStation 2, and like towards the end of PlayStation 2, gaming devices connect to the internet now. And it's a whole different ballgame. And now a PlayStation 5 in the hands of somebody who has no idea what they're doing might as well be a machete. Because of what they can access on that and what they can search the World Wide Web on it. They can talk to whoever from it, and whoever from this world can talk to them, and there's no age restriction on that. There's all kinds of things that go on those little headsets that our kids play games on and talk to each other. And that's generally where most kids these days, if you were to go and ask the 7th grade, where did you learn to curse? Where did you learn the cuss words? Gaming. From who? Some guy in Germany? Really? Yep. An adult person from somewhere else that I was talking to through the headset. Yeah, it's wild. It's weird. And that's even like the sports games nowadays. They can play sports games against people on the internet from all over the world. And they communicate with each other. And that communication is oftentimes very adult and very inappropriate and all that type of stuff. So there are settings you can put on these things to make it where they can't do that type of stuff. Where you can make it where they can't communicate with just whoever, where there's only certain friends they can communicate with, and all the different things. It's important, if you don't know how to do that, as parents, if you're going to buy your kids that stuff, that you at least look into it. How can I add restrictions? What can I do with this? All those things. Another way to do that is just plug it in your living room where you're at all the time. Right? If you plug it in upstairs in the bonus room where you're never at, then what might come across it is different compared to what's in the living room where you're at all the time. So that's a big help. It's okay to have 2 TVs in one room. Like if you want to watch the game and your kids want to game and play video games, that's okay. Do it in the same room. Plug them both up. It doesn't hurt anything. Totally okay. Did I go through all those? I did. All right. Cyber life is not separated from real life in our home. It shouldn't be separated from real life in anybody's life. What you do digitally, you might as well have done in the flesh. Scripturally, the way I would explain this would be like Jesus talking on the Sermon on the Mount. If you lust upon it with your eyes, then you've already committed adultery in your heart. You don't have to actually do the act. If just your eyes are seeing it and wanting it, then your heart is guilty, right? So if the act happens digitally, it might as well have happened in the flesh. The reason that I say this, and I think that it's important that the church says this, is that I think that that's real spiritually. That it's not safer to sin digitally on your spirit. It might be somehow safer to sin digitally on your physical body, but it's not safer to sin digitally on your soul. I promise. It's still sin. It doesn't become safer because it's digital. It doesn't become less than or less significant because it's digital. This operates in the sexual realm, of course, but this operates way outside the bounds of just that when it comes to cyber life and real life. Because oftentimes people in the cyber world, especially the social media world, will say things on social media that they would never say face-to-face in person to somebody. But for some reason, because there's distance of the digital distance that's there, they think it's appropriate that they can type it into a screen. Have you ever typed something that you would never have said out loud? Why are you laughing? That's true. You haven't.
Not on the social media, maybe in a text message.
Yeah. That's true. You haven't.
I'm not sure.
But you delete it before you hit send. Maybe. Cyber life's not separated from. And here's some kind of examples of what that is. Social media is a tool to present your true self to the world around you. In our case, and when I say in our case there, I think this would be in the Christian case. We use it to engage in relationships to enhance our reach with the gospel. Right? So I have social media. The one I use the most, the one I'm active the most on is Facebook. I used to be a little bit active on Instagram, but I just don't do that for some reason.
You're old.
It's because I'm old. I'm old. I'm not relevant anymore. It's not even called Instagram anymore. Oh, it is called Instagram. It's the other one, Twitter. It's not called Twitter anymore. It's called X. X.
No.
I used to have a Twitter. I don't get on it anymore. But it can be used as a really powerful tool. It can also be used to cause massive harm, right? So it's important that we understand that what we're putting out there needs to be our true self, not some false version of ourselves, right? It's important that we teach our children that when they post a picture, that it needs to be a picture of really them. Even if our children are 17 or 18 when they finally get social media and we start to let them post, that picture needs to be really you. That doesn't need to be a digitally altered picture of you, because then you're putting out a false image of you. You need to be proud of who you are. You don't need to edit that picture and then post it. We're not trying to create a false reality, right? It's okay. The way you look is awesome, especially for our kids. Now, when you get to be 25 and you want to do stuff like that, that's your business. My advice to you would be, you don't need to do that mess. You're gorgeous, whoever you are. And you're special and you're awesome, and you should not feel like you have to change the way that you look digitally before you post a picture digitally. Number one, we all see you in real life. But number two, it's okay for you to just be like you. It's totally okay, right? And that would be a big one like that when we teach our kids, is that it's okay for them to be them too. They don't have to keep up with whatever the look is. It's fine. It's good for them to be them, as we kind of teach things like that. So, if you do it online or digitally, you did it in real life. If you bully online or digitally, you bullied in real life. That's a real person on the other side of that screen that you're bullying, that you're talking about, that you might be hurting. In our world today, it's important that we as parents in the church teach this well. Because our kids are surrounded by others who are not being taught this well. And we need to send our kids as arrows into the bullying realm as best we can to attack the enemy. Say, bullying's not okay. Digitally or in person or ever, bullying is not good. Not okay. Not an okay thing to happen in any place. So whatever you do digitally, you did in real life. Doesn't matter what it is. That's how we talk about it. That's how we teach it in our house. That's what we tell. And then we do things, or we do not do things on a screen that we would not do in front of our grandmother. Yay! You shouldn't do anything ever. Well, I guess I shouldn't say that, right? But you shouldn't do anything most of the time in public that you wouldn't do in front of your grandmother, right? But digitally, this becomes relevant in some ways. I'm going to tell a story. Are you okay with it?
Depends on what story.
So Paige was invited over to spend the night at somebody's house a couple weeks ago. And there was like a bunch of girls that went over to spend the night. And sure, Paige, you can go over there, right? We don't just say sure to whoever. We very much know these parents, by the way. I don't know if that's part of this talk, but
I don't know either. But
that's a thing for us. We very much know them. We very much trust them, all those things. Well, one of the things that, even though you very much know people and you very much trust people, it doesn't mean that they're like rules or your rules. They were making videos for TikTok, the other girls there were. And it's to music that as they're playing some of the music, there were two little girls in the group that put a kibosh on some of the music pretty quick. Paige and another little girl that is very involved in her church and things like that. And they put a kibosh to some of the music really quick. And while I will say the music might have been totally acceptable to like a lot of people in this room, but to Miss Paige, it was not. So Paige probably has a higher standard than me and Rebecca on some of that stuff. Said, no, we're not going to listen to that song, right? So they had to kind of be cautious with the music because Paige was around. And then they asked Paige if she would be a part of some of the TikTok dances. No, I'm not allowed to be. You can't take pictures of me or film me ever at all. Why? My dad will kill you. And then he'll kill me. You can't take pictures of me or film me and post them anywhere ever. We don't do that in our family. I won't be on a video that's going to be posted onto something. Really? Yeah. I just don't do that. Okay. Will you film us? Yeah. I'll film you. So she was the cameraman, right? I'm not on the video. Film you dance. And they were dancing inappropriate. It was not weird. They're young, okay? Film them. Whether they think they're dancing inappropriate or not, or all those things, I know who's out there watching it, and if they knew, they wouldn't have posted it. I promise you that. And parents, if you knew who was out there watching it, you would take it all down. If you knew the creepo who's watching your 11-year-old daughter. I promise, because he's out there. And it doesn't matter whether you're filming her playing a sport or doing a ballet routine or whatever it is, eating dinner at the table. He's out there and he's a weirdo and he's watching. And that stuff for me, I'm like, no, he can watch somebody else's kid. He don't watch my kid. We're just not going to put it out there. So she would never do a dance in front of her grandmother that was at all anyways suggestive, like at all, ever. And the kind of music that she would be like, that she'd be willing to listen to or whatever in front of her grandmother would only be Christian. So that's how we've kind of raised her. And then we send her out and she goes into an environment where she gets asked to do something that we're not okay with, and she succeeds. Like, no, we're not doing that. I'm not doing that. You can do that, but I'm not going to participate. And so, okay, we've done it. We're doing the right things. We're doing good. And she can have open dialogue with us about that and know that we're not going to tell her that, no, she can't go back over there because they did that. Right? Because we have to be able to have some trust there, and she has to have some freedoms. So that's the balance, and that's the struggle, and that's the hard thing of like, how do I raise my kids in this environment with all of these things and all this stuff? At some level, you are releasing them because you can give your kid the right phone. Like we've given Paige what we believe is the right phone. What's the phone? Let's talk about it a minute.
What do you want to know?
Details about what, come on.
It's called TrueMe, and I have control of it, even though she has it in her hand. So, like, I get to put all the contacts that she needs. If she wants to add a contact, it has to be approved by me. But that's as far as we go with the phone right now. She doesn't get access to any apps yet, so on her phone. She has her iPad, and she has limited things on there that she does at home. But just the phone right now for us is used for contact purposes only. And she does have a few friends on there too. It's not like I'm
I think she has
crazy.
Yeah, I think she has like one or two, maybe one. I think it's one.
I think it's one.
She has one friend's phone number that she can text back and forth right now. And that'll be more eventually, but right now it's just one. Just one. And that's okay. Like, she's okay. She may not have everything that all her friends have, but it's okay.
She thinks she's cool stuff with the phone, though.
Yeah, she
We could have just given her a phone with nothing on it. I think it would have been fine.
She used to carry around one of Rebecca's old phone cases, and she drew like the phone face, the face of a phone on a piece of cardstock and put it in the front of it. And she used to carry it around with her and like put it in her bag and stuff. Like, this is like 6 months ago. And in front of like her other friends and stuff, they would have their phone out and she would get out that and like make fun of herself in front of them. Like, that's where she was. And they would ask her, are you ever going to get one? She'd be like, I don't think so. Probably never. She's okay. She still has a
We
phone.
always told her that she could have a life alert button. Because if something happened, she could push it and somebody could get to her. But she didn't need anything else.
Yeah.
Until just recently, whenever we were like, oh, we really need to get in contact with Paige. So we did some research, and this is where we landed. That was a big step for me, though.
Yeah.
Do y'all ever disagree about what the parameters are on anything?
All the time.
I have the final say. No, I think that, yes, we do disagree some, but like, I think we always err on the side of whoever's being more cautious or something like this. Like,
Yes.
yeah, right? I just stay home, then I don't even know. So I'm trying. Greg would give her so with TrueMe, they do all the work with the apps that are approved. They go through all the details of it. Like if you can chat with somebody through the app, it is not approved. All the things. So the approved list it's pretty substantial, but it would be like something that I would approve for Paige to have on her cell phone. And he says, let's give it to her. I'm like, absolutely not. Like, we're not going there yet. And so that's been like a little disagreement. I mean, we're not arguing about it. It's just he thinks that she should have it. I don't, and she doesn't have it.
Well, and usually once she explains to me the why, I'm like, I didn't know that you could do all that on there. No, let's not give it. I agree with her.
And we don't want the cell phone to become, particularly with the cell phone, we don't want it to become the center of her attention. So she still has like, she gets to play her Adventure Academy. She has Disney Plus, which is very limited on her iPad as well, and things that she can do at the house. We don't do screen time during the week. And things like this. So she still has access to some fun things, but I don't want, we don't want her in the world, not in the world. Like,
Yeah.
In her cell phone and all the time.
Digitally consumed.
Right. And even though she's not going to have social media, I don't know ever if when she's in our house, because that's just a whole nother thing. But it's just setting her up. If we give her access to all these things on her phone now and she's already consumed with it, then it's just going to be that much easier for when social medias do come along for her to just be completely in her cell phone. So, which I have to check myself sometimes on my cell phone too. So,
Yeah. One of the things that I think we've noticed is behavioral differences in our kiddos based on the screen. So
substantial.
Yeah, and so that can be based on a couple different things. Number one, just the amount of time on the screen. So like if they've spent a large amount of time on the screen, the amount of time it takes for them to regulate coming down off of that and to start to be their normal self and not like be short with their language and not be in a little bit of a mood seems to be a long time. If we let them sit there on that screen for hours, then it takes a while to regulate and to kind of get them back to reality. And they can be watching like totally innocent, I'm not talking about, like, they watch Disney Junior. Paige still watches The Lion Guard. And, like, Dora the Explorer. No, what? She watches Vampirina. Disney Junior shows. Yeah. PJ Masks, things like that. And some of that's with Katie, but sometimes, like.
The preteen stuff these days is.
Yeah. But we've had to filter even like Disney Junior, right? So we started noticing some attitude and we're like, okay, what are you watching? What was the show?
I think it actually was with Katie, but she was like real big into Bluey. And she went through this time where she was like really, really, really whiny. And we're like, what is going on? Like, this is not characteristic. Well, come to find out, every time she was watching a show, it was Bluey, and they tend to be a little bit whiny on that show. And
he's British, and he's like a whiny British little brat.
And so we cut it. I was like, okay, let's switch to something else and just see, and completely changed.
Yeah.
So
and she would whine all the time when she was watching it. And we're not gonna watch it anymore.
But that happened with Paige too. I think that it was like, I don't
remember.
remember.
That was Peppa.
No, we didn't ever
but
do Peppa.
we don't watch Peppa because she's whiny too. We don't like whiny.
You're whiny too, so what do you watch?
Well, Colin Cowherd and all those guys on sports that whine all the time. You're right. They're whiny.
Anyway, it can be innocent and still affect behaviors, attitudes, psychological things.
Absolutely. Because it's not reality, right? And you're being consumed with it and all those things. So I'm a Star Wars like nerd, and we watch a lot of Star Wars, and we watch the animated Star Wars, and we watch all the Star Wars in our house. And like, I don't mind to sit and like watch Star Wars for a marathon, right? But that's not good for my kids. So let's get up and play Star Wars, Dad. Don't be so lazy. Let's get up and get the lightsabers out and have Star Wars battle. Let's get the Nerf guns out and let's shoot the guns across the house and build the Star Wars fort out of the sheets and do things. Because let's get active. and
That's
let's
when
do
I go
something.
to the football game is when they're doing that.
Yeah, and let's not just watch the football game on TV. At halftime, let's go out back and have a football game, right? Like, we have to also be active, and we have to also teach active, and we have to show active. And in a world where, like, and I've heard stories, and I love the stories, and I want you to tell them to me, but when I was growing up, I would get on my bicycle, and in the middle of Oklahoma City, and ride my bicycle like 8, 9, 10 miles away on pretty big, busy streets. And go into gas stations and buy stuff and go to the batting cage and go to McDonald's, like 13 years old, go to McDonald's. And I tried to go through the drive-thru on my bike. It doesn't work like that. You have to come in. Mom, I need a bike chain. Why? Because I'm going to chain it up on the playground fence at McDonald's to go in so I can order and eat. And so I'm 13 years old. Like freedom that probably I shouldn't have had at the time, right? You would never do that today, right? You would never let your kid, I would never let my kid ride from Booth Meadows to McDonald's in town. Where when some of you were growing up, you're like, we did stuff like that all the time. I mean, 40 miles. It's a different world. So in order for them to have some of those experiences and some of those freedoms, you're going to have to do it with them. You have to ride your bike to McDonald's with them. Right? Or at least your little Jeep go-kart that you have or whatever. To McDonald's with them. Or you're going to have to do adventure with them because they don't have the same freedoms we had as kids to do adventure. We had some crazy freedoms to do adventure and to be creative and to go into the wilderness and build a tree fort that kids do not have these days. And we have to provide them with that. We have to show them how to do that and give them enough of us and enough guidance and enough supervision where they're safe, but enough freedom where they can go be Huck Finn and build that tree fort. It's good for them. They need that stuff. I did that stuff until I was way too old, right? But we all need it. We all need that adventure. We all need to be called to adventure. So I don't have any more slides. We're wrapped up. We're done. Does anybody have any thoughts or questions or anything that you want to ask us? Next week, we're going to dive into Ecclesiastes and Job. And we're going to go back to our regular programming. We've interrupted regular programming. We're going back to it. Questions, thoughts, concerns?
We're not perfect. Just letting you know. Sometimes it like feels like, oh, they're saying all the right things, blah, 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 and like there's still mess ups at our house. So just know that.
Yeah.
We're still learning.
We're very much still learning.
It stresses me out, actually.
Like
It's
I said
another
about-
level of anxiety.
It's like I said about being a husband. This is the first time I've ever been a husband. This is the first time I've ever been a father. Yeah, to an 11-year-old girl, I've never been a father before. Never done that. It's new. I have a feeling that over the next couple years, I'm going to be in for a whole new deal.
Buckle up.
Frankie's like, yes, you are. It's a whole new deal. Just wait. I've never been to a father to a 7-year-old boy.
That's the one thing. Like whenever we're talking about raising arrows and like letting them go and stuff, like it's so funny because Paige, she has always been our like leader, go-getter. She will tell anybody and everybody about Jesus and everything.
Cruise director.
Oh yes, and William is just a whole nother different. Like I don't know that he even talks while he's at school. Like, I seriously think he's like just. okay, I'm here. I'm definitely not going to talk to anybody about Jesus. That's where he's at right now. He would never. But Paige at that age,
She'd tell you
no
all about
problem,
Jesus.
yeah.
So we have to work on that with William. We're working on that.
I think he makes wise choices, but
For the most part. All right. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you for being here. I think this has been fun and good. Thank you for coming and helping me.
am I your guest speaker on Sunday?
No. But I can confirm that we have a guest speaker on Sunday.
And it's not Rebecca.
Yeah. It's not Rebecca. Reverend Brett Hardy will be here. And so this is my,
Lifelong best friend.
we were college roommates, worked together in our first job, high school best friends. So he's my accountability partner. We talk every day. He's a pastor in Edmond, Oklahoma, and he will be here delivering our sermon on Sunday. He's Presbyterian, so give him some grace. He hadn't always been so reformed, but he's fine. We love him, and we're so excited that he's here and going to share with you guys. So, and hopefully he doesn't tell too many stories on me. And don't ask him. It's none of your business. Because he will tell you.
I will too.
You would never. You love me.
You say plenty from the stage about me.
About how you are the best
Oh,
cook on planet Earth. You're the best cook, and you're the best wife and best mother. I just adore you. All right. We're going to shut her down. So thank you all for being here, and we will see you on Sunday with Brett. Mm-hmm.